This is Edward 2.0. Edward 2.0 is an updated STM32 version of my robot that can switch back and forth between an autonomous and controlled mode. The original version of Edward was powered by an ESP32 and has its own video on my channel that you should go check out. So first, let's talk about Edward 2.0's personal controller. The controller is powered by an STM32 Nucleo G431KB development board. This board takes the inputs from the sliders, joystick, and button, converts the values into usable and sendable data, and sends that data to Edward using an NRF24L01 module. This RF module communicates with the development board through SPI and is used as a transceiver to send user inputs to Edward. All of the components are soldered onto a very simple PCB that I designed in KiCad, which is housed in a 3D printed body that I also modeled in Fusion 360. Everything is also powered by a 2000 mAh 11.1 volt lithium-ion battery with a buck converter and a toggle switch. Now let's talk about Edward 2.0 himself. First is the STM32 Nucleo F446RE development board. This board receives data from its NRF24L01 module through SPI communication and controls the sensors and motors with that data. This NRF24L01 module is used as a receiver to receive the data sent by the controller. Next up is the 4 IR sensors. 2 are used to detect left and right obstacles, while the other 2 are used to detect cliffs. Edward 2.0 also has the ultrasonic sensor that looks like his eyes. It's used to measure the distance from nearby obstacles. Next, Edward 2.0 has 2 DC gear motors used to drive his wheels. These motors are driven by an L298N motor driver. He also has one traditional 180-degree servo motor which serves as his neck to pan the ultrasonic sensor. Next, Edward has a ball caster which generally assists with all of his movement by supporting his back end. And to power these components, Edward has 4 buck converters that step down the voltages from the battery. And finally, that of course brings us to Edward 2.0's 2000 mAh 11.1 volt lithium-ion battery and toggle switch. All of this is mounted on a 3D printed body that I designed. With all of his hardware out of the way, let's talk about the code. The code is split in two. One half is for Edward 2.0 himself, and the other half is for his controller. All of the code was written in C language with the STM32 Cube IDE. Now finally, let's take a look at Edward 2.0 in action. Edward 2.0 has the same functionality as the original version, he's just more refined. He has both a controlled and autonomous mode that the user can switch him to at any time. So that's Edward 2.0. I built him to improve and refine the functionality of the original version. I used more professional level hardware like the STM32 development boards to further my knowledge and show that I have experience with hardware used in the industry. Anyways, that wraps it up. You can check out my video on the original version to see some of the differences and improvements that were made since then. I hope you liked Edward 2.0 as much as I do. Thanks a ton for watching.